Since the dissemination of the vital plasma in the planetary waters by the sowers of life, the appearance of the first truly intelligent and volitional beings brought great joy and supreme satisfaction to the Creator Fathers of the sphere. The first autochthonous human beings were called Sontan, the love of their mother, and Sontanen, the love of their father, and we could well say that they were the authentic autochthonous parents of the entire human race, leaving aside other races that settled in Nungamesha from outer space. They appeared on Earth about 1 million years ago now. Sontan, Anda, and Sontanen, Fanta. Anda and Fanta were their cosmic identities. They were twins and came from a family of evolved primates. The result of a genetic mutation that meant that as children they could walk upright, that their skin was not as hairy as its parents', and that they could communicate through differentiated sounds. Morphologically they were of a height close to 1.60 meters. And they had a fairly developed skull, much larger than their congeners. These two remarkable creatures were true human beings. They had perfectly human thumbs, as many of their ancestors had, and they had feet as perfect as those of the present human races. They walked and ran, they did not climb, and they had already lost the function of grasping with the big toe. They were dark-skinned and black-eyed, with a certain resemblance to the Eskimos. These twin primates were much more human and less animal than their predecessors in the middle mammalian group. The human type of hand and foot had reached its full development, and they could walk and even run as well as any of their later human descendants. They stopped living in arboreal environments, but continued to resort to the treetops as a security measure at night, because, like their previous ancestors, they were very prone to fear. The increased use of their hands did a great deal to develop their inherent brain power, even when they did not have fully developed minds. Although Sontan and Sontan differed little from their ancestors in their emotional nature, they exhibited a more human bias in all their propensities and were indeed splendid and superior creatures, reaching maturity about 10 years of age and living an average lifespan, 40 to 45 years old. Very soon a series of emotions arose in them as you know them today. They manifested curiosity and admiration for both objects and other beings, and exhibited considerable vanity. But the most extraordinary advance in his emotional development was undoubtedly the sudden appearance of a new set of feelings that were really human: adoration, which included awe, reverence, humility, and even a primitive form of gratitude. Fear, along with ignorance of natural phenomena, eventually gave birth to primitive religion. Not only were such human feelings manifest in these early humans, but many other highly evolved feelings were also present in rudimentary form. They knew little compassion, shame, reproach, and were acutely aware of love, hate, and revenge, being susceptible, moreover, to marked feelings of jealousy. These first two humans, the twins, were a great tribulation for their primate parents. Because they were so curious and adventurous, they came close to losing their lives on numerous occasions before they were 8 years old. Even so, by the time they were 12 years old, they had already been left quite marked with abundant scars. Very soon they learned to practice verbal communication. By the age of 10 they had already invented and improved a language of signs and words of almost 50 ideas, and had considerably improved and expanded the clumsy communication technique of their ancestors. But no matter how hard they tried, they failed to teach their parents more than a few new signs and symbols. Little by little the 7 spirals or spirits of development were activated. At first only the spirit of intuition could function in the reflexive, instinctive behavior of primordial animal life. With the differentiation of higher types, the spirit of understanding was able to endow such creatures with the gift of spontaneous association of ideas. Later, the spirit of bravery emerged in operation. Later the spirit of knowledge appeared, manifesting itself in an increasing way. Biological evolution itself brought the function of the council spirit, with a consequent development of the herd instinct and the principles of primitive social development. When Sontan and Sontan were 10 years old, the spirit of worship made its first contact with the mind of the twin and, shortly after that, with that of the twin. The process of settling down a human mind was nearing completion, and when, after a year, they finally resolved, as a result of meditative thought and purposeful decision, to flee from dearness and travel north, then the spirit of wisdom began to function in Nunjameka and in these two minds, already recognized as human. Sontan and Sontaan had a first son whom they called Sontad and who was the first truly human being, as you identify him today. Later they had another 18 more children. They died in an earthquake caused by a rock that crushed them, along with 5 of their children and 11 grandchildren. The descendants of Sontan and Sontan very soon developed a great fear of natural forces such as thunder, lightning, rain, snow, hail and ice, but it was hunger that led them to start of adoration for animals. For Sontaan, the larger animals that served as food were symbols of creative power and sustaining capacity. From time to time they used to designate various of these larger animals as objects of worship. During the period when the worship of a particular animal was in vogue, it was painted in crude strokes on the walls of the caves in which they lived, and later, as the arts continued to progress, such an animal deity was carved into various ornaments. These first indigenous human beings were excellent hunters, very prosperous and determined, living almost exclusively on meat, although they also fed on wild berries and certain fruits of the trees. Sontan made a stone axe in his youth and later his descendants fine-tuned the wooden spear and the harpoon, which they handled very skillfully. These early humans became highly adept at crafting stone tools and made long journeys, covering vast territories in search of stone, much like modern-day humans travel to the farthest corners of the earth in search of gold, platinum and diamonds. Finally, they discovered fire. And that incipient humanity began one of the most transcendental stages of its entire history. This has been another documentary of SDHW for the 1A1 Foundation.